Welcome back. If you aren't already following Naked, please take a minute to do so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Each follow means so much and it actually helps a lot. If you have more than just a minute, it would be absolutely incredible if you could leave a review and maybe even share an episode with a friend. I am relatively new to the pod world, especially new to the things that are important in the podcasting world. And apparently reviews and follows are up there on the list of importance. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Welcome to Naked, where stories unfold. I'm your host, Janelle, a once former pastor's wife who exchanged small town living for a nomadic life. The unexpected change in our life led my husband and our 4 kids to traveling the world. From years of being rooted in our small town to the thrill of wandering the world, our story has been anything but ordinary. On our journeys, we've met amazing people, learned their way of life, and heard their unique stories, which has led me to understand the profound impact of shared experiences. In each episode, we explore moments of transformation, guided by one single question: is there a time in your life when everything changed? We invite ordinary storytellers like yourself to share the often unexpected turns in life. So grab a seat and settle in. This is the Naked Podcast. I've known my next guest since I was a teenager. I was dating her brother and felt like I finally had my own little sister. Lindsay and I were 4 years apart, but when you're 16 and 12, that gap seems absolutely huge. She was my little buddy that I would dote on, do her hair and paint her nails. The cutest little blondie that I loved having around. Just before my 20th birthday, I married her big brother, and Lindsay officially became my little sis. A few years after I came into the picture, she was diagnosed with epilepsy, so her teen years was anything but ordinary. It changed a lot in her life, but nothing quite like her unexpected journey of becoming a mom. She grew up babysitting and always dreamed of having kids of her own. The idea of this being difficult didn't cross her mind until she was labeled a medical mystery. No one had any idea what was going on or what was wrong. Why just kind of loomed in the background. Sometimes she felt lonely as she sat in the midst of the questions and the unknowns. It's been over 10 years since all this began, and though I know about this chapter in her life, this is the first time we sat down and I've fully heard her whole story. The loss of pregnancy, the journey of IVF, that eventually led to her having her own children, had us both in tears. It was such an honor to sit with her and hear her whole story. I hope that you enjoy this episode. We're going to go
We're just going to do it.
We're just going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen. I'm super excited to have my guest here today, who is also my sister-in-law. This is a really, you always think of people you'd love to hear their story. And I know so much of her story, but we never really sat down and let you really unfold all the things. So Z and I met when I believe my most vivid memory of us is in the backseat of your mom's car. We had gone to the leisure center and we were swimming.
Yeah.
And your hair I was like, what am I think I'm 4 years older than you, or 3 years, whatever it is. Old enough at that time that 3 years or 4 years felt like a huge gap. I think I was 15 or 16. You were like 13, somewhere in there, 12, 13.
I thought I was like 9.
I don't know.
I was young.
Either way, you were little and I was a little bit older. So we had gone and your hair had gotten matted in this hair elastic. And I mean, I knew you. I know that I had met you before that, but at that point, I think I was dating your brother, or at least close to that, at least. And so it was like, you were like my little pet kind of. And then now you have like this hair matted and your blonde hair all coiled up. And I was like, we got to get this out of here. So I think my earliest memory is probably like 15. I think 15.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when I think we kind of really got to know each other a little bit more. So it's been like a lot of years, like 30 years ish, not quite, 29.
Yeah, don't age me.
Yeah.
29.
Yeah. So, and I feel like then it just kind of, eventually we ended up getting married and having kids, and our lives just kind of found each other, and we've just been each other's life now for like almost 30 years, which is pretty cool. So that's a little bit of an intro as to who I have here today. Lindsay's my sister-in-law, and we met so many years ago, which I'm so grateful for. We always had a good relationship, and she's been able to see my kids, grow up and all the things, and now she has little ones too. So yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
in the midst of a busy life with littles to be a part of Naked and be part of the community. Before we get into it, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently busy with in life?
Oh, about myself.
I mean, just a little snippet.
Oh, this is just a little one.
Just a snippet.
Okay. I was like born and raised Canada, that kind of thing. Um, so I don't even know where to start with that
Well,
one.
we can if you want, I'll get to the other question that'll come afterwards. So then you can kind of launch it. But I think sometimes people in the past people like, I would love to know like people where they're at in life today. Like, you know, your mom and these kind of things.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah.
maybe you can start off with just a little bit like what keeps you busy. You know, you have little people, but you also have your hands and work is too. So
Yes.
yeah, a little bit about that.
Yes, definitely the little people are the most. Aside from that, doing wedding florals with my mom. So it's art has always kind of been a big thing of mine. I've always loved art. So, I mean, it's kind of a stretch, and Lord knows I did not think in a million years that I would be building bouquets. Like that was not really on my radar.
Yeah.
And when you think of art, you don't really go there, I guess. Your mind doesn't go there.
Yeah.
So, when my mom was like, "Hey, let's join forces," we've both unfortunately not on our job anymore. So let's join forces and bring this to life. And I was like, okay, show me how to do a boutonniere and I'm in. And that's all I do. And she said, no, you'll learn. So, doing that on weekends and then littles during the week. And, trying to balance everything, trying to find, time to be with like the other moms that are living in the same weird life that I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which is weird because I don't know, because like sometimes where I am and then also where they are, it's like this is kind of goes with the whole story of my life. Like if everything had gone according to my plan and had littles when I wanted to and stuff, like none of these people would be here and I wouldn't be with them. And so, yeah, that's just kind of, I guess, what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. And it's busy, like amongst like the world of momhood, you know, you're juggling laundry and dishes and cleaning and getting groceries and taking them to and from school and, you know, all of the things that like go with, like, it's not just like, oh, I have the two little, like it's a full-time job. Plus you're doing another job on the side. So yeah, I feel like it's a lot. And then sometimes we underestimate like what we do, I think, as moms and I just have the kids, but no, your world is busy.
It's hard. Yeah, it's true. You say that you're like, oh, so I'm just with the kids.
Yeah.
And
just keeping humans alive and stuff.
Yeah. No big deal. Just got to make sure they're fed and alive and doing well.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's true. It's a busy season of life, but like you said, had things gone according to, you wouldn't have people in your life. I think that's a cool thing about being a mom. And even as your kids grow up, like the kids that they will meet in school will then sometimes their parents will become your friends. And it's like, just it's part of this world it's honestly so awesome because you're living a very similar, your lives are very parallel. And so there's an understanding of like what it's like to like be drenched in, your kid's vomit and what it's like to be drenched in like all of the things that come with parenting, it's just a different season. And so it's nice to have people in your life that can be running the same race as you at the same stage of life, which is, I think, a big part of how we make it out, because it kind of takes a community to get us to the, to raise humans. We kind of need to know that we're not alone.
Absolutely does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. I'm like, can I live with my village? That would be great.
Yeah.
The village that helps. Can we just like communal living?
Yeah.
We'll all take care of each other's children. It's all good.
It's perfect. We'll all just like cook a big meal together,
Thanksgiving every night. Like
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I know we've thought about this a few times and now we're finally making it happen. It didn't come without some hard work today, but we made it happen with all the computers.
Oh my gosh.
We're learning.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Updates, upgrades. No thanks. Just give me my computer and press start.
Yeah. This is not working. No, we got it to work. So yeah. So the one question I think that, I talked to you about before, just don't overthink it, but just like as we go through life, there are so many things. I was talking to my son about this the other day. I was like, when you think about your life, is there a point in your life when you're like, that everything changed? And we both went on to say, there's many points in life where everything changed, like when you get married, when you have a child, and then there's all these other things that are like, those are just the things that a lot of us go through. But then there are the other ones that maybe we don't talk about or we don't share about because they're just kind of get lost in the bridge of everything else that's going on in life. And sometimes those journeys can feel kind of lonely because they're not really obvious per se, like, wedding picture, obviously you're married or, or having a child. It's like, oh yeah, like me too, but there are other parts of our lives where we just don't maybe talk about. And that's the part that, that's why I've created Naked, as a space for people to talk about the things that maybe we don't always talk about, and the truth of it, so that others maybe know that they're not alone in their journey as well. So I don't take it lightly that you're here. I feel very honored that every guest that decides to come and share bits of their story. So thank you for being here. Is there something that comes to mind today when you're like, this is when everything changed for me?
Well, like you said, there's so many.
Yeah.
That you're just kind of like, oh,
which one?
Like, where do you start? Where do you begin? Where do you, but like, I think where life really, I guess, altered my plan, I guess, if you will, per se. I mean, like, I was going to start with the whole, like, at a teenager ending up with epilepsy, that kind of whole thing. But I was like, you know what? That happens to a lot. And, there's so much other stuff that I've gone through that also happens to a lot of people. But I think what totally altered it, I have to say, was probably the first pregnancy. And I think it's because all I wanted to do growing up was be a mom. So, well, a teacher and a mom, and that first one, we're not going to go there. That didn't really pan out. But, so I was like, because I just want to be a mom. I love kids. I nannied, I babysat, all that stuff. And I loved it. And so I think that what happened with that first pregnancy was so altering that I guess kind of changed more of life. I mean, other stuff did too, health and stuff like that did too, but I think that was probably a large one anyway.
So do you want to take us back a bit to like that pregnancy and maybe walk us through a little bit of that, like finding out you're pregnant and then when things started to change and when you knew things were changing?
I don't know if you'll remember how we announced it to you.
I don't.
You don't?
I mean, maybe when you talk about it, it'll trigger memory.
Let me tell you. So I remember we decided, okay, first 4 years of marriage, we're going to go travel, enjoy each other, get to know each other even more. And then after that, kids. So that was like definitely our set plan. And it was awesome. I loved the traveling. I highly recommend. It was very good. I loved it. And then, I think it was actually Valentine's Day of the 4th year that we decided, okay, we'll just give it a try, see what happens. And it's so funny because with your first, and I don't know if you found this or maybe other people have, but it feels like it's taking forever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like it only took 5 months, but I was like ready to hit up the doctor and be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, this is not happening. Why is this not happening in the first try?
Yeah.
So that was kind of comical. Now looking back, I'm like, 5 months, man, that's like, bam, you got it. You're good.
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
So yeah, it only took us 5 months for that first one. And, as soon as I found out, the minute I found out, I'm not super patient. So I immediately, like, I was working, Oh my
While you're
gosh.
taking the test, you're working.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know you're like
Yes.
you're ready to know
So,
you're taking the test to work.
yes. Yes. So I was at my summer job, which myself and my assistant at the time, who very close friend of mine, and we were running food to kids in playgrounds and stuff like that in with our not-for-profit organization that we were at the time. And we were in a lull in between two locations that we
Okay.
had to drive to drop off food. And I'm like, hey, could we just like stop real quick? And she's like, why? I'm like, I'm going to grab a test. And she's like, are you for real? I'm like, yeah, for real. I'm just going to stop. Like, I mean, come on, let's just do it for fun. And so we stopped and I got the, got the test Safeway in the Safeway bathroom. Yes. I'm not lying. No word of a lie. So this is where I find out is in Safeway.
Oh my gosh.
Really. And so she was the first to know, which is even funnier.
That is funny.
You know,
know
aside from anybody, it's, you know, it's my assistant. And we laugh about it now. It's funny. And so I grabbed a card on the way out, and the card was an invitation. And it said, you're invited. And on the inside, I had filled out, you're invited to the birth of your first child. Roughly 9 months from now. Like, it just, like, all the RSVP, you know, like, just like all that stuff was, I had had that idea in my mind since we started of like how I would announce, and apparently dropping it off to your husband when he's working is not the greatest way to do it. Because I stopped at his work, which is like 3 doors down from mine, handed him the card, and he just kind of went white a little bit, even though we were both kind of expecting this at some point. He was just kind of like, you know, like, I'm in the middle of work and now I'm gonna be a dad, and like,
and take it all
the feelings, like all of it. So it was a lot to take in. But so it had been, we had known for a week.
Okay.
Yeah, we had known for a week. So of course, you know, you're doing all the, every moment you get to sit, you're like looking up details, you're looking up what to expect, you're looking at, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I had been going through that, and we were talking about like how we might announce to people. And we started with, I think one of our parents anyway. I think we started with my parents, but we did it the same way with both of them at a dinner. And then we were prepping to do the remainder of like siblings.
Okay.
So it was going to be like you and Greg, and then all of his brothers and sister. And so we were trying to plan this out, and Justin's mom was living with us at the time, because she was working in the same building as I was. So she would drive in from the country to work and live with us. And then after Friday, she'd go home. So she was there. And one night I just had some like really uncomfortable pain. And I was like, this is weird. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm a bit of a wuss, and this is just something that's like heartburn or something weird. Or
you don't know, right? You're like, this is my first time. I don't know.
Oh yeah. You're just like, there's weird feelings everywhere. This should be normal.
Yeah.
So, I sat there and I kind of, you know, we were just chatting after work, and we're just like making dinner, and I'm just kind of shifting and uncomfortable. And, you know, she's like, so what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I just uncomfortable. I don't know. It's just pain. It's just kind of bothering me. I'll let it slide. And,
at this point she knew.
So, she had just found, she knew. And so she was like, why don't you go take a bath? I'm like, that's a great idea. So I sat in the bath. No, not, it just didn't really do much. At first you're like, oh, this is nice. And you're like, So I thought, well, maybe cold shower. No, that does not help either. Definitely does not help.
No.
And so I tried everything, like fetal position, standing, sitting, squatting. I was like, I don't know. And I don't know if you remember this, but I called Mom, and I was like, I know you're with Janelle. And I remember Janelle mentioning to me, with your first pregnant, no, was it your first pregnancy or was it with Lexi? You had some like really bad was it heartburn?
I had really bad heartburn with Lexi. Yeah.
Heartburn. Yes. Yeah. And I remember you telling me you had to like sit against the side of a car and stuff like that one time and just like try and pass through that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to call mom. She's with Janelle and I can ask her about this. I could be like, hey, can you explain to me the level of pain you were in, you know, when you had this heartburn? I don't want to be that person that goes into like the ER.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I come in, I'm like, and they're like, you have gas. Peace. See ya. You know? And I'm like, great. Glad I did that. Embarrassing. So that's that. I don't know if you remember that, but that was the phone call that I made.
That's big.
And
back there.
I'm like, that was basically my announcement to you. That's how you found out, was me calling and saying, hey, I have some severe pain.
What's this about?
I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Is this normal? And so I don't know if you guys were just kind of like, you're what? Like, what's going on? Like, why are we talking about this? Or, you know, and I was like, this was the worst way to announce to anybody ever. But, yeah, I was on the phone with you for a while. And I remember you being like, it's different for everybody. And, you know, every pregnancy is different. And I mean, knowing like now I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it, you know, but in the moment and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So it was about 7 hours, I think, of just kind of trying to figure out this comfort and why is this going on? And, eventually, Justin was like, I can't do it. You need to go. Like, we're going to the emergency. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be that person, but okay.
I know.
And so we went in, I want to say it was very, very late evening.
Okay.
Because I remember getting there and they finally let me in. I think it was like 2 a.m., something like that. And they had no idea. They didn't know what was wrong. And they're like, well, maybe it's, you know, like, there's a rupture of something. There's a pushing. And, you know, they're like, oh, first pregnancy, you know, it's just
She's
discomfort.
Fine.
Yeah, she'll be okay. And the guy that took me in to like check me over and stuff like that, like I said, hey, I'm pregnant. I've only known for a week and the test said I was 2 weeks. So I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, well, let me get the ultrasound machine. And I was like, all right, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Haven't been to the first like total appointment, but okay, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And so went in and he brings in this old machine and he's pushing around. And the more he pushed, I was just like, this I can't do. I can't, no. So I had to stop him and I was like, I'm sorry, it hurts too bad. Whatever you're doing. He's like, I've actually never done this. I just thought I would give it a try.
What?
I'm like, oh, good.
Oh, perfect.
Glad I'm in your hands. It was the weirdest experience. And so he's like, well, we'll give you some painkillers. You're going to need an internal ultrasound because you're so early.
Yeah.
So he's like, we'll send you home and then you come back in the morning, full bladder, blah, blah, blah. And then
do the internal.
And then they'll do the internal and they'll let you know what it is. And I was like, okay, sounds okay, even though this sucks. So going back home and then still the discomfort level, it was increasing a bit. And I kind of don't even remember like the drive there to the hospital. All that stuff is just kind of, I just remember sitting there being like, I need the washroom and I also need this to be figured out because it's not helping.
Yeah.
And went in and I remember the first doctor was like, you know, the whole, oh, this is going to be cold, a little uncomfortable. I'm like, I'm already uncomfortable. It's okay. Go for it. Yeah. And I remember her looking at the screen and just like kept looking and looking, you know, when their eyes are just kind of like looking to the side, you know, and you're like, what's going on here? And she's like, just let me check with another doctor. I was like, okay. 4 doctors later.
Wow.
4. The fourth one was like, okay, this is an ectopic pregnancy. And they're announcing this to me while I'm still laying on the bed. I'm like, if I could get dressed, that would be awesome. But
Yeah.
I'm just laying there. Justin's mom was actually, she was able to come in at that time as well. And they were like, so it's an ectopic pregnancy, and it's just your tube, instead of blowing like they normally do with an ectopic pregnancy, it usually bursts. They said for some reason yours is torn, and so you're just internally bleeding slowly. And that's the uncomfortable pain over the period of hours.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, well, at least I wasn't that gas person, you know, or wasn't the heartburn person.
Did you understand at that moment what they were saying to you, or were you just in complete like, I'm sorry, what?
I had no idea, because I remember hearing ectopic once before, a family that I nannied for. I remember just going over to say hi, and I ended up staying there for 3 days taking care of the kids because she had an ectopic pregnancy.
Okay.
That first night that I came to visit. And I remember like remembering the name of that when it came up, and I was like, oh, my friend had that. What is that? So now I'm like, oh, now I'm experiencing whatever this was that she had. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, so what does this mean? They're like, you need to be thrown into the emergency room right now. And as they're like wheeling me down the hallway, they're giving me paperwork to sign. And I'm like, what am I signing? And she's like, just sign it. It's basically just saying we get to save your life because this could be fatal. So just sign it.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, sweet. Well, let's just sign it because I'd rather you save my life. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So it was just very quick.
Yeah.
Everything was super fast. So I was like, okay, this is confusing, frustrating, like, you know, all the above.
Yeah. You go from excitement
to
being like, what is going on? Like,
oh yeah,
a week ago, like, oh my God, we're having a baby, to like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this has been like 1 week of like, you know, high heaven and, you know, the excitement. And then like, well, how are we going to announce to people? And, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm like being rushed into an emergency room, an operating room.
Yeah.
And I'd never had an operation before. So I was like, and you have no time to prep, right?
Yeah.
Because it's emergency. And so you're like, you don't have that like, okay, so what's going to happen? How should I prep myself? How should I? I remember Justin just being like really, really scared. And I was like, what? Like, why are we so scared? And he's reading the paperwork and just like, he's like, what's going to happen? And yeah, I just remember them telling me, you know, the whole classic countdown backwards from 10 with me. And yeah, and then obviously I'm out. So all that happens. I don't know how they did it, but they were able to repair the tube. So it had like, she basically said that there was like a slit, like it had torn, and then she was able to stitch it. I don't know how.
Wow.
I mean, those are miracle people, because I have no idea how you do something that small. So I just remember, my first time opening my eyes. So I was laying in the bed in recovery, and I had not quite opened my eyes yet, and I just said, I miss my baby. And everyone left the room. So when I did open my eyes, there was no one in the room. So I'm like, everyone left me? So I'm like, oh, not only that, I'm recovering and now everyone's gone. Like, so I didn't know why everyone had left, of course. And so Justin came back in by himself and kind of explained to me what the doctor told him. And then the doctor comes and explains, hey, you were 5 weeks going on 6. When this happened, we had to flush it, blah, blah, blah. We were able to repair it. Don't worry about it. You'll be able to try and things should be fine. We tested you both. You're both normal. Everything's normal. You're great. So just recover, take a couple months, and then let's try it again. So
that's a lot to hear. You're just like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. Try again. You're like,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, do you understand? It took me 5 months.
Yeah. It's a long time.
You have no idea. So yeah, it was a lot to take in. And there was so many people around me and so much support, but the way of like people finding out is like, I knew that it would be like they would feel they wanted to say congratulations and I'm sorry, you know, like, but how do you say those in the same sentence?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have had losses and stuff like that, their first loss or many. So I downgrade any miscarriage
Loss
whatsoever.
is loss. Yeah.
A loss is a loss. Yeah. But, and it was just weird to have so much support, but feel so alone, you know? Sorry, that was...
No, don't be sorry.
I wasn't prepared. Not for this. I wasn't prepared to do this.
I think that's the thing, though, Linz, is that when you're going through something, you can have a village, but you can still feel like lonely. And
it was so weird. Because, you know, I had my husband holding my hand the whole time, taking time off work and, you know, all that stuff. And I just still felt like I was like in this room of just like echoes and just alone. It was so weird.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that changed everything was because now every Mother's Day, you know, people celebrate you and you're like, thank you, but it doesn't help right now.
Yeah.
But it does, but it doesn't, you know, you feel honored, but you just, So I thought, okay, no problem. I'll take a little bit of time and regroup and let's do this again. And, I mean, little did I know that it would be, you know, like, I think we had like 3 testings or something like that. And they all just said, oh, you're a medical question mark. Nothing's happening and we don't know why.
And how long
just keep going.
was that with getting all those testing done? Like, what was the time frame of that?
So after we were able to start trying again, I think it was a year, and we did an IUI. Okay. And a lot of people don't know what IUI is. Basically, the easiest way I can explain to someone is basically like turkey basting. Like, that sounds terrible, but that's what it is. So you pay to get that procedure done, and a lot of people have good results and success with it. So we were like, awesome, this is exciting. We're going to try this. No, fail. Like, they came in, they were like, we don't know what's going on. You both have high numbers, high counts of, you know, whatever you need it for. And they're like, everything is normal. We don't understand. So we were like, okay, you got to wait, I think like a minimum 3 months to do another IUI.
Okay.
So we waited a little longer than that. I can't quite remember the time span. Maybe 6 months, between 3 and 6 months.
Okay.
And then we did it again.
And is it costly?
That one's $500. Okay. So, I mean, it's a chunk of change. It's a good chunk of change, but it's not like you're going like mind blowing overboard, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why we were like, oh, we'll do it again. So did it a second time and fail. And so we were like, well, don't know what to do from here, because this has now been, oh gosh, it was at that point, I think, a 4-year journey at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, I think 4, between 4 and 5. Yeah.
From when you first started to try to get pregnant?
From the first pregnancy.
Oh, from the first pregnancy. Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And so we're like, this is, I guess, not the way we planned.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know what is going on here. So that changed everything. Is like, you know, you're just kind of going through the motions of every day and just, you know, wondering, you know, and then you're actually like, I was actually excited for people as they're telling me they're pregnant and like attending baby showers. It was weird because I truly was excited for them.
Yeah. But a part of you feels sad too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of
Yeah.
you does, but it seemed to be afterwards, like, after the party or after the announcement. That's when I was like, am I going to get a turn? Like it was
Yeah.
just, yeah.
I remember
So,
I remember like with like you mentioned earlier with when I lost my first pregnancy and like thinking about when my friends would have kids, like so like I had quite a few friends that had kids around that time. And so I would remember when they were supposed to be born or whatever, and then be thinking like, oh, like my kid would be the same age as so and so's child, and like you see
mm,
that child growing up, and you're excited. Of course, you're so excited for your friends, but there is party that's like, oh, like it's it's sad that we're not celebrating birthdays together. You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I often thought about like, oh my gosh, like if we had had that first one, it would have been, within the ages of your kids, like
Right.
not within the ages, but quite a bit closer.
Yeah.
And they could have, actually spent more time together and enjoyed each other's company and
Mm-hmm.
all the other cousins on the other side, and
Yeah.
would have been pregnant, but I wouldn't have had the experience that I had if that hadn't happened.
Right.
So I want to say long story short, but unfortunately a talker, so we'll see what happens. But so I had a couple family members that put together a GoFundMe without our knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not requested. It was a shock. I had no idea. But it was a GoFundMe to get money for IVF. And I remember telling my assistant at work, I remember saying to her, I'm like, you know what? I'm just praying that I don't have to take needles every day. And this is before I found out about the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think I could do it. I have a severe fear of needles.
Yeah. Well, you've had a lot of doctor, like your history too. Like you spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And a fear of hospitals. Yeah. And then with like seizures, having to stay in the hospital for 5 days. And you were there for that.
Mm-hmm.
And rubbing my feet, trying to keep me awake after 34 hours.
Man.
Yeah, it's been a lot more hospital than I've ever wanted it to be,
Yeah.
and a lot more needles than I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
So like it's so ironic, and like all of this is just I just remember saying, oh, I just hope I don't have to do that. And then it shows up. I'm like, oh,
I guess I'm doing
I
that.
just hope I don't have to do. I'm like, let's not say this sentence anymore. I don't know what's happening. No.
Yeah.
We're good. So yeah, they put up the GoFundMe, and it's such a hard pill to swallow. Getting donations from people for you to have children.
Yeah.
It was so hard. Like there was no way to say thank you enough to each person. Like you just couldn't. And on GoFundMe, they give you the option of like writing a reply. I don't know if you've ever done that, like with a GoFundMe or something. If you type in a reply to their donation.
Okay.
Like, what do you say? It was just forever long because I'm like, you're helping me have my baby, like literally helping me have my dream.
Right.
What? I don't know how
to even explain that.
I didn't know how to thank people.
Yeah.
The total cost I think was about $13,500.
Okay.
To get it done.
Okay.
And I believe it was $11,400 or $11,500 that was raised.
Wow.
So I was like, holy cow, we can actually afford this. Like, because we said we're not going to go. It sounds terrible because it's the only thing I wanted, but I was like, we can't go into that much debt and then try and carry on with everything else. And then only one job at that time, and all that stuff. So we had looked at it, and we had also tried to see if adoption was cheaper, like all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, it was. So it was crazy.
So that door opens up.
Crazy journey.
Yeah. So then you get the surprise GoFundMe, and people are supportive and help you achieve your dream. from when you just like that all kind of happened to when you started your first treatment, how long was that?
Um, oh gosh. I remember from the first pregnancy to first baby was 6 years. So this
Okay.
would have been in the year 5, because so 2011 was the first pregnancy, was the ectopic,
Okay.
and I started treatments for IVF in um, 2017.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, beginning of 2017.
Wow. And then
Yeah.
how was that like,
So it's
were you kind of, did you know people that had gone through it? Were you like, oh, okay, like I understand, I know you say you didn't want to have needles, but did you have any idea what that journey was going to look like? Or was that like as much of a surprise as everything else that's happened up to this point?
well, it was pretty much, it was a bit of both, because it was textbook is all I knew really at that
Okay.
point. So basically reading up every pamphlet, every Google thing you can find on IVF, right? On what it
Mm-hmm.
is and the steps and that kind of thing. But I had a family member that had gone through IVF as well.
Okay.
So suddenly I was like, oh, I am in the position of someone that was in this position a couple years ago. And
Yeah.
so she was actually able to kind of hold my hand and walk me through it.
Nice.
And she's like, okay, they're going to tell you this. This is going to happen next.
Hmm.
And, okay, so what did the doctor say? And I said, oh, the doctor said this. Okay, well, next time plan for prepare for this. I'm like, but they didn't say they would do that. She's like, I know, it just happens. Like, they don't
Wow,
tell
that's
you.
amazing that
So
you had that.
yeah, it was the greatest thing I could have, really,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just so blinded by everything.
Yeah.
And, they have so many people coming in, because at that time, I think when we had the first, doctor appointment with, she happened to actually be the one who did my surgery for the ectopic, the one
Oh,
who took me
wow.
through the
No
IVF. Yeah,
way.
she was my IVF doctor.
Wow.
So, and she said, I thought there wasn't anything wrong. I'm like, no, there wasn't. And there still isn't. And
We
we
don't
still don't know
know.
why.
Yeah.
To this day, we have no idea.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, she walked us through the stuff, and I looked over, and the poster said 1 in 3 couples
Hmm.
has infertility issues. And
Wow.
so I was like, this has gone up,
Yeah.
because growing up, I never heard of IVF. I never heard of, there was
Yeah.
so much that you didn't hear of that now is so common.
Yeah.
So anyway, she was able to hold my hand through it.
Mm-hmm.
Did the needles every day. um, and there's something called a trigger shot, and the trigger shot is like the make or break kind of situation. It's very, very important in the IVF process.
Okay.
And it has to be taken at a exact time, like a certain time
Okay.
in the day. And so what you're supposed to do is, instead of it's an injection, but it's also like you have to pull back the needle first to make sure you don't get any blood, because then you've hit a vein
Okay.
or a nerve or something.
Okay.
And as soon as they told me that, when they're explaining to me, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't see blood. I can't. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I can't. I literally got a ride to where she was at the time, which happened to be a movie theater. And she did this shot for me in the parking lot of a movie theater
Wow.
so that I wouldn't miss it. So, it
That's
was,
the village getting through the stuff.
that's the village.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It
Wow.
was quite the experience. But so, I mean, it's just so weird. You think back to oh my gosh, it's taking 5 months to,
Yeah, right.
oh,
To
it's been
6 years.
6 years, and I'm still in the needle process. It was
Yeah.
just, everything was just up in the air. You never knew. Every second day you're going in, and it just was, I don't know. It was uncanny just thinking like, wow, this is nothing you ever expected, right?
Yeah. And did
And
having epilepsy complicate that matter for you guys, or was it like did that make things more difficult for you? I remember you having to like go
um
like change your medication and stuff at that time.
yeah. Yeah, I had to talk to the neurologist for a baby safe one. And that was when actually when we were first trying, I
Okay.
had to go and switch my meds. So that, yeah, that was a process in itself because
Yeah.
you have to switch very slowly
Okay.
to make sure that like seizures aren't happening in between.
Right.
Um, so yeah, there was that process, trying to go through that. Um, and then also with hormones and things like that, with your pregnancies, um, seizures can either increase or decrease. They can't confirm
Okay.
what it's going to do, if it's going to increase or decrease.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you're just like, it's just a lot of prayer that nothing's going to happen after you're going through this whole process of it. And
Yeah.
especially since like anxiety or stress is a trigger,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Now you're like compounding, like putting
I
all this extra stress. Like you gotta do this right. You gotta you gotta do all the stuff to make sure it happens, and it's all gonna be perfect. Yeah.
yeah, be back in 2 days, at 8 o'clock. If you miss 8 o'clock, you're done. It's just like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And I just remember partway through thinking there has to be a reason for this journey.
Mm.
And one day I will find out why. One
Mm.
day. And I I was very, 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 very blessed to find out what that reason was. I have talked and walked two people through IVF now.
Mm.
And one of them I actually have never met. I'm
Wow.
good friends. I'm good friends with her husband. Grew up with him as a child, and he actually was the one that contacted me and said, "Hey, can you walk her through this? She's willing to open up. She
Mm.
doesn't know you, but willing to be open." And I said, "Hey, if she's willing, I'll share anything. I'm an open
Mm-hmm.
book." And so yeah, I had beautiful little girl she had, and
Mm.
so yeah, and then another one was another friend that I had worked with years ago, and so it was kind of neat to be able to see that cycle, that
Yeah.
a family member held my hand, and then I you know
Got to do the
got to
same.
hold another hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I knew how, was because it was done for me.
Right.
So yeah, it was very successful in the end. We had a lot more embryos than expected, and
Hmm.
all that stuff, but yeah, a lot of hospital trips.
Yeah. And did it work for you guys the first time through then?
It did, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you
Yeah,
know
we
what
ended up.
the like success rate normally is for that? Were you guys one of the rarities of that, or is that common?
I think we were kind of on the middle ground, because there's most people that have to do IVF have to do it because of a medical reason.
Okay.
So there's something that's not right, either with like sperm count or egg count or cysts, or just different different internal problems on the female end. Sometimes can be it, like anything tilted or moved,
Right.
or just
Not quite
like
so.
there's a lot of medical things. Yeah. Or if you've had an ectopic and you lost a tube, you only have one
Oh,
other one. So a lot of people will do it for that reason.
okay.
So because we were a medical question mark, we ended up very successful, which I mean was a huge blessing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even talking to people in the waiting room when I was sitting there,
Mm.
ready for your next blood test every second day, and
It's crazy.
um, she's like, "Yeah, no, they got 20 eggs." I'm like, "You got 20 eggs? What are you talking about?" She's like, "Yeah, none were viable, none worked." And I was like,
Mm.
"What?" So it's just,
It's a journey.
it, yeah, and I think we were middle ground. I think we were definitely successful because there was nothing wrong with either of us.
Okay.
I don't want to say wrong, but medically
Yeah.
there was no medical issue
Yeah.
for us to have to be there for that. But
Right.
yeah, so it was crazy, but I now look at like, well, if we hadn't gone through that and had both of our kids now, there's certain people that wouldn't be in our lives, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, if we had that baby way back then, you know, and then had one say right after it or whatever, we wouldn't have these certain people in our lives. And yeah, the appreciation of help. And it's hard to ask for help, you
It
know?
is.
So learning how to say thank you without I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure you understand how you can't say thank you enough to someone for something
No.
that big.
Yeah.
So
There's
and
no
then the
words
people
that
holding your
can
hand.
really describe the gratitude that you have for the fact that you two now have two little boys, you know, and that people around you saw that that was important to them enough that they wanted to be part of that dream for you and Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was huge. Absolutely huge. And yeah, we were blessed beyond belief, like for everything. The IVF, the baby showers, everything, because everyone knew we had been waiting and trying this long.
Yeah.
So instead of having babies 4 years after married, it was 10. So
wow,
it was just different, you know, a different journey than I expected. And yeah, you never expect to be a geriatric pregnancy, which they should rename, really.
Yeah. It really should.
Just call me senior or something.
Yeah.
Don't call me geriatric.
Oh, man.
So, but yeah, it was something I never thought I'd have to go through.
Yeah.
And both things, the ectopic and IVF, I actually had prayed I'd never have to go through, but there's a reason for it. And you know, God's plan is bigger than ours in every way. So it is true. You tell him what you want and he'll laugh, you know. He's like, really, that's what you think? That's great.
He's just gonna change it on you. Is there anything when you look back that you think that was the hardest part of it all? When you think about it, is there like one thing that stands out that was, or maybe not even the hardest, but like the most surprising part about it, whether it be hard or just difficult to digest, or
the second failed IUI was hard because it was like, I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah,
like this might never happen. So that was a very hard one, because I had to kind of sit and swallow it and, you know, chew on this fact that, you know, this might not happen. And they usually suggest doing IUI 3 times.
Okay.
And then if it's unsuccessful, then do IVF.
Oh, okay.
But we were like, we've already paid for 2. Why bother with a 3rd?
Yeah.
We were just kind of in that place, I guess, you know, where it's just like, well, let's just see what happens. Just carry on. We're not going to do it, and we'll just see what happens. So that was a hard one. And then waiting for that first phone call to find out if any embryos had were successfully. Yeah, that was a sit by the phone. You know, your phone's sitting on the charger.
Yeah.
Just waiting for the clinic to call and be like, oh, you have X amount of embryos. And
right. And the shock of that, and then being like, what?
Yeah. And then they call you every morning after that and tell you how many survived the night or the 24 hours.
Okay.
So you're called a few times throughout, I think 4 or 5 days it was. And your final number is the amount that you'll be able to freeze.
Okay.
If you don't choose to use all of them at once. So, we did not plan on using 11 all at once.
Yeah. No, we'll hold on.
Yeah, I'll start my own TV show. Yeah. No problem. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So it was, That was a tough one. That was a stressful one. And then you have the relief, but then you have those 5 days of wondering, are they still going to
Yeah.
survive? Like, what's going to. So, again, lots of support and hand
Mm.
holding, and there was a lot of that. And yet, it sucks because you feel, yeah, you have so many feelings. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Because the first month you take, all the injections, so you have a bunch of hormones going through, and yeah, you have
You're,
a bunch of that stuff. So it's up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down.
did you find that? I was actually just talking to somebody about that. They're like, man, no one tells you about the fluctuation in your hormones, like what you're going through. Like, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
this. I don't
Mm-hmm.
actually remember you talking about that much. Like, I don't remember, like, I know I was in the thick of like 4 kids at the time. So
Yep.
maybe I didn't retain all the knowledge or the information you would have told me. But like, do you recall that season being like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, so one of my friends says, she's like, I compare it to like being in menopause, which now I'm in perimenopause and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's such a roller coaster ride. Like, you feel this, you feel that, you like, your body does this, your body does that. Like, you're just like, every day it's like, I don't know who's going to wake up today.
It's true. Oh my gosh, that is the perfect saying for that. Yeah, it's true. I don't know who's getting out of bed today. Like, sad me, angry me, happy me, excited me, anxious me. Which one do you get to wake up to, honey?
Yeah. And you're the one that's living
So,
it. I think sometimes people, like, you feel bad for your partner that's like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, like, what's going on? But also the one that's like going through it, you're like, I don't know why I'm feeling like this. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, this is very frustrating for me and for you, like
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, a side effect definitely of hormones is like, I didn't expect this, was bad life choices. Like, literally.
Really?
Turning down the opportunity to be in somebody's wedding. I was like, no, just in case I'm pregnant. Like, because that's a reason? Really? That's a reason?
It's so funny.
But I was like, no, it's okay. And the next day I'm like sobbing. I'm like, why did I say? It's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. And you're just like, you're living on phone calls. And there's only X amount of people that understand, like, that you can be around. And they're like, I get what you're feeling right now because I've been there or whatever, they're like, otherwise you're with someone and they're going, you okay?
Right.
Okay?
And you're like, I can't explain this.
Yeah. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So there was definitely, yes, a lot of fluctuation, but I was able to keep it kind of at bay.
I feel like you did a really good job of it because I don't
After a
recall
while?
anything.
I tried my best not to be too dramatic.
Yeah. I
I tried. It was, you kind of have to numb yourself to certain things too, right? Like, for me, the fear and the hard part was the needles. So it's like,
right.
Okay, you just got to numb yourself to it and be like, eventually, because I bruise like a peach, I told Justin, I'm like, hey, let's just, maybe we should just do a little pattern. I'll do a heart around my belly button or something creative.
Perfect.
He's like, why would you do that? Like, it's all mentally, it's helping.
Look, it's art.
I know it
okay,
sounds
I love
ridiculous.
art.
It's art. It's art. Okay, it's art. Oh. And then I look back now, like, now that there's all this, like, with Instagram and Pinterest and all this stuff, they, people who are announcing that did IVF have these cute pictures of, like, their needles all laid out in a heart and then the ultrasound in the middle. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? As I'm like, oh, it's a needle toss.
Yeah,
done.
let's just get it out.
Get it out. I'm like, oh, I should have done that.
All the things.
But the things you look back, it's just, so anytime, it was kind of nice to be able to give some sort of perspective or life experience to anybody with any question, really.
Yeah.
At that point where it's like, hey, so someone said to me, I'm a little concerned, it's been 1 year. I don't know what to do. I'm like, hit up the doctor for your own mental, you know,
Yeah.
sanity.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, you're good. A
Yeah.
year is fine. You're totally good. Like, just keep going, you know?
Yeah.
So from that to talking them through IVF and sending them my papers and saying, hey, this is what happened to me. This was what I had to sign. You know, this is what it's going to look like. Expect this, you know,
That's so good.
expect about 9 people in the room, not just one doctor.
Right.
Like, you're
Yeah.
going to have people that are coming in to learn always, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This,
And it was a crazy journey. And then second baby was easier because they already have the embryo frozen. So I don't even know how they thaw it, but
they do.
yeah.
They
So
have
that one was
magic.
a little easier. It's magic.
Yeah.
So medicine is crazy. Like,
Yeah, it's incredible
the stuff
what
that
they
they
can do.
do, and it's unbelievable. It really is.
So if you were to
So
tell somebody who's like maybe at the beginning of like that space, like we're not getting pregnant, so now we need to try something else, and they're venturing down the line of IVF, what would you tell somebody who's just entering that space, who maybe knows nothing, knows little about it, or who doesn't have a friend to hold their hand? What's this?
call me.
Call me.
Call me.
I'll just attach your phone number at the bottom of this.
Yeah, just like phone number going
Call
across
her.
the bottom the whole time. Yeah.
The hotline number just going at the bottom. It's just you. Yeah.
It's just going around. Yeah, I think the only thing that you can say is try to be patient. Find a friend that understands any part of you. So someone that they'll understand you regardless of what you're going through, because you're going to need a friend and you're going to need your partner, your spouse. You're going to need them, obviously. But if you're not working or whatever, because I wasn't working when this was happening, I was working on the side, or I was doing flowers actually. Okay. So it was weekends, because we work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, occasional Sunday, but not throughout the week. So unless there's, the odd Tuesday wedding, but other than that, yeah, I wasn't working. So you have a lot of time to like mull over in your brain a lot of things that you shouldn't think about.
Right.
Or things that you should, that you aren't, yeah. So yeah, I would just say you just hang in there, literally one step at a time, because if you try and take it all at once, it's just going to overwhelm you. It's just a lot. And it feels like a long process when really IVF is like a month, a little over a month, of like all the drugs and all that stuff. Right. And then after that is then the, checking up on the pregnancy and things like that. And then you're high risk. So you can't have the at-home birth, which was an idea, but couldn't be an idea. So, there's that whole section to it. So there's just so many components that like you have to kind of take any birth plan you might have and kind of like toss it.
Just hold it
for
openly.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to have an eraser able to just ready and take off some of those things, and literally one step at a time. One step at a time, and make sure you have a handhold. It's just, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
All the difference. Yeah.
That's good.
It's huge.
That's a good thing to know. I think sometimes we think we can take on life's challenges on our own because we don't want anyone to know. We don't want to feel like, too vulnerable or whatever, but to know that like, no, you need your person. And maybe now there's even like groups. I don't know, like if there's even like people, if you don't have a person, maybe there's, like I remember even having babies and kids, and sometimes you can feel very lonely in that world, even though you might have a street full of children, but you're not vulnerable. So you're with those people. You don't say like, I haven't slept in, 3 days, and, all the things that can happen in the years of little people in your life. And I think I ended up eventually going to like a mom and tots group because I just needed to feel like I wasn't alone. Like I wasn't like juggling the world of I don't knows, you know, of momhood. There's no handbook to really look to. Every kid is so different. And to know that, oh no, like no, my kid did that too, or no, my kid's not talking that quickly, or my, you know, my kid's not potty trained in these three. Like these things, like just normalize the fact that, like, oh, okay, I'm not like I'm doing the best I can, but sometimes it feels like maybe I'm falling a bit short. And to know that you're not in that space. So I guess maybe the people that are even listening, if they're in this season, there might even be some sort of communities to find that, you know, where you can kind of walk the journey together with people if you don't have a hand to hold, that understands what you're going through. But I think that's a really good thing to think about. It's like, you don't have to do it alone, you know, and you're not alone.
No.
Like, you know, you're one of many that have been like, I did it, and it was a journey, and it was hard, and there was tears and there was struggles, but like we did it. And so like have hope that you can too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was night and day. Night and day. I can't even imagine not having, you know, both Justin and then my family there.
Yeah.
And then friends too, but definitely someone who's gone through it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do believe there are support groups. I never looked into it because I was in my one-on-one kind of like
you had
two-on-one support group. And then just trying to, you know, you live life and then just don't think too much about it. And it's so hard to say that because that's all you want to think about.
Yeah, it is. It's all you think about.
It's all you want to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to be willing, if you're willing to pay it forward.
Yeah. Take that.
You know, like, yeah, because I loved being a part of both those people's journey, getting the updates. And I'd message in the morning and be like, oh, what'd they say? What number did they call in with? And being excited with them. And I cannot wait to meet that little girl, but
it's so exciting to be part of that journey.
But yeah. And that's the other thing is that when you're a part of that group, just like a mom's group, right? Like I definitely needed to have that too, because absolutely. You're like, what do? I just cut their fingernails and it's bleeding.
Yeah.
Like what am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah. Called
so
a neighbor over for that one.
Yeah. No.
But it's true. The whole journey.
Yeah.
But once you get to like, you know, I finally got to be in that momhood, and I was like, you know what, I need to try my best not to complain about all these things going on in mom life, because I actually got to get here.
Yeah.
So, and I know they say, you know, like, oh, it could be worse. But I mean, someone once told me, your hard is your hard. So, you know, you can't be like, oh, well, think of so-and-so who's going through this. It's like, well, they're going through that, but what is their hard?
Yeah.
You know, their hard is their hard, and your hard is your hard. Like, it's...
Yeah, like your stub toe...
It made it easier.
If like I kind of heard a version of that. Someone's like, yeah, like my broken arm doesn't make their stub toe hurt any less. Like, you know, when you stub your toe, it hurts. Like, there's not... Just because your arm is broken. Yeah. It's just, and realizing that we're all like, we're going through it. We're doing our best, and it's okay to even talk about the hard. I think like parenting, momhood, it's just been the most like amazing journey. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. It's also the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm on the other end with like a couple, you know, adult kids and some teenagers, and it still has its own, like, you're just like, oh, I didn't know this part was coming. Like, you know, and it's still beautiful, but it's hard, and it's life though, you know, it's like part of the journey. Like, as we're evolving, so are our kids. And right when you think you'd figured them out, you're like, oh my gosh, they changed again. You know, like, like this is a new season. So
When you said not potty trained and they're 3, I'm like, oh, did I talk to you recently? Was that me? I feel like it was.
Mikkel was not fully potty trained till he was 3.5. He was like still using, I can't even pull ups, I guess, at nighttime till he was 3.5. Yeah, it's just a journey. And Lexi was potty trained at 19 months. You just can't compare, you know, the kids. They're just so different. And
that makes me so happy to know that.
Yeah, it's just part of it.
There's hope for our little guy.
Totally. Oh yeah. I remember the kids teacher being like, your kid's not going to graduate from high school needing pull-ups. Like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. So I was like, all right, that gives
That's true.
some perspective there. But
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I
yeah,
have a few more years.
yeah. Well, I'm so happy we got to do this. Thank you so much for coming. I have one last question I like just ask them people because I think it's always interesting. Is there something recently in life that you've noticed is bringing you a lot of joy?
Hmm. Um, I think the ability to see somebody else have joy in their life, like to be able to help somebody else.
Like with these women that you're helping.
Yes, yeah, yeah. To have joy. I mean, those girls, like their kids, I think are like 4 now and 2 or something like that. So it's already past there. But even like in the momhood, just even just a glimmer of joy in someone's day, or be able to like drop off a drink when you get a message that's like, my anxiety is going overboard,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know what? Well, today my kids are in daycare for half the day or for the whole day, so I'm going to stop and, see what I can do for you because it's, I know what it would be like for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, making your family happy or another friend happy, like some way where you can see joy in someone else is kind of what's making me happy.
That's amazing. I think that brings me to like a time when things were crazy with my own family, and someone did that same thing. They brought me a drink, and you don't ever know how much that can mean to somebody. It can literally feel like a lifeline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I've definitely been on the receiving end of that more than once when someone saw me and was like, "Oh, like I'm gonna make it," you know.
Yeah.
So
like, I see you.
I see you. Yeah. To be seen is sometimes can feel like it gets lost. But wow, that's beautiful, Linz, that you're doing that. And I think there is nothing quite like seeing people, be joyful and to be a part of and to be a little part of that. Even if it's just a drink. You're like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, they smiled. And sometimes the smile is the biggest thing of the week. So
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
And it's kind of a side note, but I think it was from you. Don't quote me. Might have been. One of the biggest things that I would recommend to anybody with a loss of any nature is name that baby. Name that baby. So, yeah. And I mean, we didn't know gender. We didn't know anything like that, but we both feel like it was a girl. I don't know. It's just that feeling, I guess. But we both felt it was a girl. And so we were like, okay, well, we'll name her Hope, because it's what we got. It's what we got. And that's what she is. So, so yeah, I mean, one day we'll meet her, but at least we have a name to put to her. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some people might not agree with that, but it's definitely something that actually helped us not let go, but take another step up. Because then even later when you talk about them or whatever, it feels like you made that person, and so you get to name that person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I do remember that actually, because we did name our babies as well, and it created a bit of sense of closure to it. Like it was like there was not like you're wanting to forget anything about that, but just that like it gave it some sort of roundness where it gave it like even if you couldn't meet them, it gave some sort of picture to what that was. And yeah, so I feel the same way. We did the same thing, and it just kind of felt like for us the right thing to do. And
for us too.
Yeah, help bring.
I mean, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. That's totally fine. It's just something that definitely we found made a difference. And yeah, when you mentioned it, I was like, oh wow, we should try that. And I know what you mean. Like the way to explain it, there's a roundness, a closure kind of.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
Something beautiful about that. Well, thank you so much, Linz, for being here today and for taking the time, and amongst all the things, I'm sure, calling your name at your house with your kids and everything. I really, really
thanks for
appreciate
chatting
it.
with me.
No, I am so honored to have you, and just feel like I said, every time someone says yes to coming on, I'm like, like I feel really privileged and honored that people would feel like this is a safe enough space where they could share their story. And not just with me, but people that are coming in to listen. So I love you so much. And
I love you.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a big hug.
But, I know. But, I'm like, oh, take me into that brick wall. I just want to come hug you.
We're on opposite ends of the world right now.
Over there.
Lindsay's starting her day. I'm ending my day. Or like 7-hour time change here with our lives right now. But exactly. But I'm so glad we got to do this. So thank you again. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Give those boys a big squeeze for Auntie. And
I absolutely will. Yesterday they saw a picture of somebody different. Don't even know who it was. And they were like, cuckoo?
Aww.
No, it's not Auntie. Auntie's on the other side of the world. Yeah. But they're like, can we go on a plane? Yes, we can go on a plane.
Yes, we
just
can.
Not right now.
Yeah.
just not today.
Oh, do give them a big hug for me. I love you so much. I hope you have a really amazing rest of your day. Mwah. Love you. Ciao.
Love you.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcast goodness. This way you'll never miss out on any future episodes, plus it really helps us. And if you want to share your favorite episode with a friend, that would be absolutely incredible. This goes a long way. If you'd like to join Naked by sharing part of your story, just leave us a message on Instagram or email us at nakedwithjanelle@gmail.com. Also, a big thanks to my son, Mikkel, who is the best cheerleader and maybe one of the biggest believers in Naked, and also produces and edits all our podcasts. I am beyond grateful for him and very aware that I couldn't do this on my own. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being here.